What experience of yours is so crazy you don't tell people about it because they wouldn't believe you? When I was younger, I worked at a popular theme park in the UK as a ride assistant. One of the rides I worked on was the river rapids. Two young Scouse lads who had obviously been drinking got on, and it was clear they were going to be a pain in the ass. As their raft came towards the end, they both were running around the outsides of it. The raft hits the wall and they both fell in. This is near the lift section of the ride, which if they'd been snagged would have torn them up badly. I ran down and God knows how managed to pull them both out. They were both swiftly escorted to the medical center, and I am assuming off park. The same day, after I finished work, I went to go and see a friend for a few hours, and on my way home I follow a car that is all over the place. The car hits a curb and flips onto its roof. I stop my car, run across, yank the doors open and pull both of the occupants out. Same two lads had pulled out of the water at work earlier in the day. My friend and I once missed the last train home after a gig and wandered around a nearby harbor, killing time until the train started up again. A drunk man, around 50, stumbled out of a building and invited us onto his boat. We sat with him drinking rum for a few hours while he regaled us with stories about all the sex parties he'd hosted on this boat. I didn't believe him, but I was warm and had a drink in hand, so I humored him. Monsieur, he eventually pulled a lever near the front which opened a secret door to a sex dungeon, filled with all kinds of bondage gear and sex toys. We then added each other on Facebook, and my friend and I went to catch our train back to London. Edit. He would tell us about the numerous women that were half his age that would come from all over the country to attend these parties. He would also tell us that he was absolutely, unequivocally not gay, but would totally sick off the other guys in attendance because it was the polite thing to do. A pirate hero. I used to sweat blue for a few months. My clothes, nails, and phone cover all got stained blue. It went away after a while on its own, which was good because the doctors couldn't figure it out. I was on a train, and this train had one of those chains which you pull in case of an emergency, and it stops the train, and if you pull it for no reason you can face up to 2 years in prison and a huge fine. So I was just sitting, and when I decided to get up to go to the washroom, I was kind of stuck, so I used the nearest thing to help me get up, and what I pulled was the chain. Suddenly the train stopped and I was like, oh crap, here I go to the prison. When suddenly people started running out of the train. P.S. The train had no doors. You would understand if you know what an average local Indian train looks like. I don't know about other countries. And what I realized was that a compartment of the train was on fire. So, that's how I survived from going to prison and accidentally saved the train. I told this story to a friend, but he would not believe me, so I just let it go. TLDR, I saved train and no go prison. I like watching wild birds at my work. I watched a young magpie steal bread off a raven. The magpie's family then attacked the young magpie, took the bread off and gave it back to the raven. They were bird yelling at the young bird, then called to the young magpie and kinda forced it to the front of the pack to the raven. The adult magpies gently pecked at the young magpie until it sung at the raven. Then the magpies all waddled away and went back to hunting for bugs. I feel like I watched some sort of family magpie discipline to prevent an interspecies bird war. Opened the fridge and a jar of mustard came falling down. It hit the ground and I already thought, great, now I have to clean all of it up. But I genuinely didn't hear it hitting the ground. When I looked down, there was nothing there. No glass shards, mustard, nothing. Looked around for a good 5 minutes questioning my reality. Turns out it kinda repelled of the ground and landed in the wine shelf next to the fridge, like 1.5 feet above the floor. Upright, standing, it straight up did a bottle flip off the floor. It dropped a solid 6 feet on hard ground and just bounced. still questioning the laws of physics to this date. Once when I was 8, I was climbing out of the bathtub after showering. Since I was wet and shit, my mom wrapped me up in a towel so my hands were wrapped as well. I ended up tripping over the edge of the bathtub and face planted onto the ground, where I just laid there kinda comatose for a second. So I tried to get up, blood flowing down my face from a cut in my head and my nose, and my bucket of crabs nearby. This was a seaside resort, toppled over and went all over me, and they were like in a blood frenzy or something because they pinched me all over, so I started rolling on the ground. Lovely experience, by the way. My family kinda just stared at me. I bled from my nose for 3 hours after being rescued from the crabs, and got sent to hospital, where my nose actually wasn't broken. My family refuses to acknowledge it ever happened, even though I have a hospital bracelet with that date. Oddest thing ever was crossing the border at the Golden Triangle from Thailand into Myanmar. Had a heat stroke due to dehydration and passed out in the middle of the street right after the passport control. Woke up to 5 armed soldiers pointing rifles in my face. Don't speak a word of Thai or any other Asian language. I signaled I need to drink water with my hands, and they gave me a Coca-Cola and helped me sit down in a nearby chair. I was like 12 years old and played with my dog in the backyard. He suddenly stopped and just looked at my leg. There was a piece of wood in my leg. It was approximately 8 centimeters long and in 90 degrees angle in my leg. It didn't hurt. I didn't feel anything. To this day I'm wondering how this stick found its way into my leg. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I was walking around in our flat and wondering what was itching below my foot. So I looked and I had a thumbtack sticking all the way inside my heel. I have no clue why, but it didn't hurt at all. I had a huge shock though. Also interesting to note that the hole is still there 12 years later. When I was a teenager, I almost got run over by Robert Pattinson in my hometown. It's a smaller city between Bruges and Ghent. He was driving a Mercedes, probably on his way from Brussels to the hotel he was staying in on the coast. I'm 100% sure it was him. He was in Brussels for a premiere for the latest Twilight movie at the time. Only told my dad. When I was much younger, preteen, I was outside watching shooting stars. It was that time of year where you can see lots of comets fly by. It was the middle of the night and I was laying in the grass just enjoying the stars and comets. My older stepsister had just gone inside to grab a drink. Out of nowhere, the entire night sky lit up bright blue for a nanosecond. All that was left when it faded was a blue streak across the sky and what looked kinda like a ship at the front of the streak. I didn't know what I was seeing, but it looked like it was rotating slowly. It eventually disappeared, but the trail was still in the sky. Immediately I rushed inside to try and get people out to see it. By the time they got outside, it had faded completely. Nobody believed me. And #X200B. I found out later it was just a SpaceX launch. But I thought I had seen a genuine UFO for years. I know I saw it, but I didn't tell anyone because I'd sound crazy. On my first day of school, in I think social studies, I had a sudden feeling of content knowledge that I knew everyone. That kind of feeling you get when you've been there for a while. Which didn't make any sense, as it was the first day of school and I knew I didn't know any of these other kids. Then the feeling went away as I questioned it, and I shrugged it off. Until during the last week of school, in the same class, bored and ready to go, I suddenly felt mildly panicked that I didn't know anyone, as if it was the first day again. Then I remembered how I felt on the first day. I think I experienced a time swap. I was playing with snow on the top of my building and then I hear a bullet pass next to me. So I prone, then I heard a gunshot from far and right after that a bullet hits the glass behind Me? I released it's a sniper. He shoot 5 bullets or 4. I don't remember exactly, but none hit me. I went down, told my mother, but she didn't believe me and didn't care that much. I live in Syria, _ Okay, this is literally for me. One night, I was coming back from a friend's house to my house. It was 7 p.m. when I left, and after a 20 minutes walk, I arrived home. Though there is a small problem. I arrived home at 7 a.m. next morning. The lighting was the same and I didn't ever notice a change in the amount of daylight. The only reason I noticed something was off is because upon arriving home my dad was leaving for work and asked me why I had returned so early. Completely confused, I asked what he meant and he showed me his watch. I was taken aback and he noticed something was wrong. He asked what was wrong and I told him, "Monsieur." He looked me dead in the eye and started laughing. He said we had spoken at 10 p.m. and I had told him that I would be staying for the night at the friend's house. I left at 7 p.m. Monsieur friend confirmed time of departure and dad confirmed time of arrival, as he was leaving for work, and also I myself remember that. This leaves us with a 12-hour gap in which I have no idea what was I doing and where I was. My dad didn't believe me and thought I was pranking him, Monsieur. Thankfully it has been 1.5 years since that, and nothing like that has happened since. Still gives me the chills trying to understand how could something like this happen. Edit. As many concerned people pointed out, I could be suffering from epileptic episodes. This is not the case. 6 months after this happened and due to an unrelated health problem, severe migraines, I had multiple encephalograms, 2 MRIs, a CT scan, and countless blood exams. My doctor concluded there is no problem whatsoever with my brain, or any other part for that matter. And another doctor agreed. I fell off a 35-foot bridge onto concrete and barely even hurt myself. The most I got was a badly bruised thigh and a pretty bad graze on my elbow. Whenever I tell this to people IRL, they all call me out. Edit. Don't ask how I fell off of the bridge. Shit happens, man. Once as a landlord I had to break up a 18-person orgy. We had noise complaints which were common. Went to the room to check and things were odd. They would barely open the door to speak to me. They had the weirdest assembly of clothing on. And there was this weird salty smelling fog in the room, Monsieur. Finally, just for documentation's sake, I had to have them sign my report and they said, "Do you want all of us to sign?" I said, "What?" They turned on the lights and in the middle of the floor was a giant pile of naked ass. We're talking every gender, every position, a clown, a midget, a toilet seat, all in one big pile gyrating. My presence wasn't going to stop the party. I then looked up at the TV. They had a gigantic 80+ inch TV, super high def, playing the most explicit porn I've ever seen. I mean, you could see razor burn. I had to shut down the party because the buildings were shit and there was an occupancy limit in each room. You could only have 7 people in at a time. And they were over quota. All at once, like 15 angry naked people got up and started storming out of the room in various degrees of nakedness. I had to return to my office to write a report up, and were we told to be as explicit as possible, so I included the razor burn, the sloppy ham smack sounds, everything. I got a call in the morning from the female manager going, "Yeah, we don't need that much detail. You are in trouble. The owner wants to speak with you." So she put on the elderly male owner and he exclaimed, "That was the best story I've ever read. Please write more." I saw a girl who contracted a rare African parasite shoot crack, causing tiny worms to crawl out of the hole in her arm and from the corners of her eyes. It happened. I'm sure it did. I saw the worms. She held one up and said, "See, I told you. This is what they look like." I threw it on the floor and burned it with a lighter. I wasn't even on drugs because I had a drug test for probation in the morning. It's like my own brain is trying to convince me it didn't happen, but I'm sure of it.